Hi, welcome back to the channel. I'm Eugene Day. Today I want to talk about hiring, not the job search. That's a much larger conversation. The hiring process of determining that a new position is needed to making an offer to a candidate is the source of a lot of frustration for both managers and applicants, and I think justifiably so. It takes a long time, but it's a complicated process. So, from the inside, from the hiring manager's perspective, what does this look like? First thing the organization needs to do is determine that they need a new position. This is usually because someone has left the organization, but it may be because the team is growing, has additional workload, and needs to expand their capacity. Getting permission to backfill a role or to create a new empty role to hire into can take months. There's a lot of financial justification that goes into that, demonstration of the need for the work, etc. Once that permission is secured, then the manager has to decide on the role and the seniority of the role and create a job description for the role. Now, most mature organizations have libraries of job descriptions that you can either select or tailor to the role. But in the tech world, where technology changes very rapidly and often team structures change very rapidly, you may need to write a new job description from scratch, which also then requires a round of approvals. But once that's complete and you have the executive sign off on permission to post this position, you post the position to job boards, to your company's website, etc. And you will immediately get dozens, hundreds, thousands of applicants, many of them simply automated. And the hiring manager and their HR support will have to then sift through all of these resumes and identify candidates for the position. This is typically done with the aid of an AI tool. I'm not a fan of that, but I don't have a better solution either. It's just incredibly complicated to find a good candidate from the deluge of applicants that you get, which is why hiring managers, including myself, often have sort of side quest recruiting efforts that they do to identify candidates through networking and to advance them through the process by name so that you can include them in your long list of resumes of qualified applicants for the role. Those qualified applicants, typically somewhere between 10 and 15, will then be submitted to a team generally constituted of potential colleagues and coworkers of this new hire to review and score. I would always develop a rubric for scoring the applicant on a set of metrics, and the team would look through their resumes and sort the resumes into first, second, third, etc. We would then take the top 3 to 5 of those candidates, whichever we felt met the threshold of an actual potential employee, and we would schedule interviews for them. Scheduling interviews involves typically a one-on-one with the hiring manager, me, and a panel interview of colleagues and coworkers, and then perhaps a interview with the primary business partner. In the hospital world, especially in the hospital analytics world, the work that an individual does doesn't necessarily report up to their hiring manager. The work reports to the clinical side of the business. And so the physician or the administrator that their work would report to may also want to interview the person. They usually do. So that's 3 interviews for each candidate. If you have 5 candidates and 3 interviews for each candidate, this is going to take several weeks to schedule all of those interviews, and that's a challenge. So if you're one of the early applicants, it may take a week or 2 weeks before your resume is even reviewed and you are put onto that long list. It may then take another week before you're put onto the short list. It may take a week to schedule your interviews. And if you're one of the early interviews, it may take 2 to 3 weeks before all of the interviews have been conducted so that we can decide on the next steps. Hopefully, after this round of interviews, you have identified a preferred candidate. If not, you need to go back and repeat the entire process. After the interviews, the teams meet again. They review all of the candidates again in order to select, do we have a preferred candidate? Is that preferred candidate good enough to make an offer to? If so, then you prepare and you make your offer. That involves a back and forth with HR that can take a week, sometimes more. And so it can sometimes have been 2 or even 3 months from the time that a position goes originally live until an offer goes out to the first candidate. It's a long, challenging, expensive process. And if you can't come to terms with your preferred candidate, hopefully you have a second candidate that you think is good enough to take on the role. If not, sometimes you just have to start the whole process over. I have had hiring searches go on for months and months and months, at least 6 to 9 months before. So, because all of this is happening in the context of everybody having to do their regular jobs as well. So, that's why that process is so difficult and takes so long. There's a lot of moving parts, there's a lot of people that have to agree, and there's a lot of approvals that you have to secure along the way that just take time. I don't know that I have any great news for you. I certainly don't have any tips or tricks that can shorten this process, make it easier. But I hope if I've given you anything today, it's the ability to be patient with the process and to recognize that even when it feels like nothing is happening, behind the scenes, a lot of people are working hard to identify the right candidate for the role and to move forward. And most hiring managers and processes are engaging in this in good faith and working hard to get people working. Thank you so much for spending some time with me this morning. And YouTube thinks that you might like this video over here. I'll see you next time.